Here's Desiree. Hi, Desiree. Welcome. So hi, everybody. I think everybody knows who I am. I'm Teacher Michelle, and I'm super excited about our family ed tonight on early literacy because it's something very close to my heart and something I've been involved in for several decades, maybe more than 2 decades, in terms of early literacy. And, specifically a play-filled approach. So I want to say, first off, is that I am first and foremost an advocate for children's right to play. And that just like when our children are, so literacy includes speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And just like our children learn how to talk without us doing really anything special, they're both wired to learn how to speak, and we're actually wired to learn how, we're also wired to support them without really having to learn anything about how to do that. We just automatically have back and forth conversations with them. Our worlds are filled with language. We imitate sounds back to them, that the sounds that they need to use. We use a special kind of voice that we just do without thinking as mothers, which is particularly helpful for babies learning how to learn language. Just in the same way, our youngest children, the children, from birth up through about 7 years old, in many ways, there's a lot of things going on where they're not really, they're not developmentally ready for formal instruction in literacy. And that formal instruction in literacy can be counterproductive because when we push things on children that they're not developmentally ready for, they can perceive themselves as not good at, and then therefore not like something. And so their brains, basically, they don't understand directionality in these early years, and letter formation requires an understanding. If you think about the letters B and P and Q, it's all the same line and circle, but it depends which direction it is for it to be that letter, versus if I have this elephant here, it's an elephant this way, it's an elephant this way, it's an elephant this way. It doesn't matter which direction I turn this elephant, it doesn't stop being an elephant. So that's one of the ways their brains are not ready for formal instruction of literacy, but their hands are also something that are not developmentally ready for early writing. There's a lot more cartilage and less muscle formation in a child's hands. And so this is why, I just advocate a playful approach. So you'll see children who are interested in elements of reading and writing much before 7, and how we can support and foster that and build a passion for literacy going forward. So that's really what today is about. So again, I want us to have some shared agreements with this day that everyone here participates. I'm going to ask you to engage the chat right away, like right now. Tell us what your name is, your children's name, and their ages, and a favorite children's picture book. So while you're typing those things in and thinking of your favorite children's picture book, maybe it's a favorite book that you guys are reading right now in your houses, or maybe it's something from your own childhood. So I remember from my own childhood was Babar the Elephant. I don't know if that's so old nobody knows it anymore, but that was one of my favorites. And then another was Richard Scarry's books, because I just loved looking at, there was just so much on any one page to look at, and I would just like all these different stories, and I could just entertain myself forever doing that. And then my son's favorite books kind of changed over time. When he was a baby, he was super into, he loved the chicka chicka boom boom, will there be enough room? A told B and B told C. And that book has all of this rhyme and rhythm to it, which we'll talk about a little bit later as one of the ways we can foster literacy early on, some early reading skills. And it's really interesting because my child was really super drawn to books that had those, especially early on, that kind of musicality in the books. Another agreement, if it's possible, keep your camera on. I recognize that sometimes we got to go deal with something, or our Zoom isn't working that great and we need to turn it off. But if possible, keep it on. I love seeing your faces. It makes it much easier to talk rather than like just talking to you know, the names. And then this is a judgment-free space. So if I say something or use some sort of educate, ease, you know, don't hesitate, like use the chat, ask me what I mean by that. You know, all questions are welcome. And, you know, it's a judgment-free space. So feel free, like if you don't understand something, just to pop a question in the chat and I'll stop and explain. Also, if you just have a question, you know, regarding like, oh, I'm seeing this at home, is this okay? You know, feel free to ask any of those. And then most importantly, because we are all doing a million things, is to practice some self-care. If you want to, even just give yourself a little massage right here and a little hug. You know that you're here, you're showing up for yourself and for your kids, and get up and move as needed. Go to the bathroom, get drinks of water, take care of yourself. So good. Can we all agree to those things? Let's see what's out there. Oh, I love Neil Gaiman books, particularly at this time of year. Peppa Pig. Oh, I do. I love Hungry Caterpillar. I love reading that book. That one's the Hungry Caterpillar one is also a really lovely one. As children are starting to show interest in reading themselves because of the repetition. So they can sometimes in early reading looks like memorizing a simple text, and repetition helps support that. Repetition supports a lot of early reading skills, like being able to retell and predict. So yeah, books with some repetition in them are also really wonderful at that stage, just before. I mean, really young children love those books too, but just as they're starting to read themselves, those can be really great books. So our agenda today is we're going to talk about 4 things. We're going to talk about following our children's lead. Then how do we build a passion for language, stories, and learning all together? It's really about how we keep from squashing the passion. And then we'll talk a little bit about beginning phonemic awareness, and I'll tell you more about what that is, but it's one of the things that we can do through play to support early reading skills, is through doing some simple things, and we'll talk about what those are, and phonemic awareness. And then finally, we're going to talk about supporting your early writer. I like those 2 books too. Oh, Brown Bear, another really, really wonderful one that's got predictable, repetitive text. So that last piece on supporting your early writer is that writing is really reading inside out. And it's one of the best ways best ways we can follow our children's lead and support their literacy is by supporting them as early writers, because they can write from what they want to write about, just like they sit down with a piece of paper to make a picture. And there's a lot of correlation between early drawing and writing, and supporting that can help support them in their journey on reading and writing. So first off, talking about following your children's lead in terms of literacy. So I'm going to read these aloud, and I don't typically do this because you guys can read too, but these are the kind of why would we want to follow our children's literacy lead. The first one, the quote that's in the turquoise, comes from Loris Malaguzzi, and he is from Reggio Emilia. He's an Italian educator. It's a kind of pedagogy that the play-based curriculum that we use at Woodland is based off of, comes out of that pedagogy. And what he says is what children learn does not follow as an automatic result from what is taught. So it doesn't, I can be trying to teach something. Maybe I'm trying to teach what the letter B sounds like for something. But I can assume that a child's going to learn what I'm teaching. Rather, what they learn is in a large part due to what they're doing. And it's a consequence of their activities. So play, basically, we can see a lot about what they're learning through what they're doing in play. And that last part's really important, and our resources. It's a consequence of their activities, they're doing, and our resources. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about in terms of supporting early literacy at home and through play is by having these resources around our house that they can use so that we can see where they are and what they're interested in and follow that lead. Then Teresa shared a post with me that the next two quotes come from. And so this is an educator, a play-based educator. Her name's Kristen R.B. Peterson. And she wrote that teaching a letter of the week is an outdated and ineffective practice. And so what should you do instead? Instead, allow children long amounts of unstructured free play. So that's kind of the why. Why do I want you to follow your children's literacy lead? So one, in many ways, not until they're 7 are they ready for any kind of formal instruction. So we want to follow their interests and their lead, but their learning really happens from what they're doing. And so we're watching what they're doing. And so when they're interested, they're showing interest in books. We're giving them, we're making sure that we're going to the library and getting extra books, and we've got books at home, and we're sitting down and we're reading. We've got a child who loves to climb and jump and swing, and so they're really and a lot of times children's learning looks like whole body movement. So maybe sitting down and reading isn't a thing that they're going to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a child who's interested in reading. So maybe that time when they're up and climbing over and under and above and moving the pillows on the couch, you're just laying on the floor with a book and reading aloud. So that's one of the ways that you're following their lead, instead of expecting them to sit down with you because you want to read a book at a particular time. Maybe you've got magnetic letters that you're putting up on the refrigerator, and you notice that your child is starting to play with them. And so then you can start having conversations and engaging in that play with them. So those are the ways that we follow their lead. So we're looking at who our child is. They're an active child versus a child who likes to sit and have a break and read. or maybe we're bringing books into the times when they are still like in the bathtub or in bed or in those more contained spaces. So we're following that child that we have, but we're also like observing them and what they're interested in playing with, but we're bringing those kinds of resources into the environment so that we can see whether they're interested or not. And then we're following, we're following and engaging them in those kinds of play. So let's play for a second. So I've got, this is a great song, and for phonemic awareness, which we're going to talk about more later on, but we're going to play this song together with you. And so I'm going to jump in with you. I'm going to sing the song and you'll start getting the feel for it. And then when I get to your name with a Willoughby Wallaby, and I'll say your name like Rarisa, then Teresa, you're going to jump in. That means you're going to have to unmute yourself and you're going to say an elephant stepped on Teresa. So I'll start us off. Willoughby Wallaby Woo, an elephant stepped on you. Willoughby Wallaby Wee, an elephant stepped on me. Willoughby Wallaby Wishell, an elephant stepped on Michelle. Willoughby Wallaby Warisa, an elephant stepped on
Teresa.
Then do Monica.
Okay, so I go through the whole song?
So go Willoughby Wallaby.
Teresa, Willoughby Wallaby.
Monica.
Monica. An elephant stepped on Monica. Willoughby Wallaby Wee. An elephant stepped on me. Willoughby Wallaby.
Someone can take over. Willoughby Wallaby.
Monica.
Catherine. I know, she said my name now. I'm confused.
Oh, okay.
Willoughby Wallaby, Catherine, an elephant stepped on.
Catherine.
Catherine. It's confusing. Tommy knows this song.
And
get Tommy in there.
How do you sing it for you?
on Catherine.
Willoughby Wallaby.
Resurrect.
Wezeray. Willoughby. Wallaby stepped on Desiree.
Willoughby Wallaby Woo, an elephant stepped on
you.
Wallaby Wee, an elephant stepped on me. Willoughby Wallaby Rarisa, an elephant stepped on
Teresa.
Teresa.
Did you
Willoughby Wallaby.
Mommy.
Mommy. An elephant stepped on Tommy. Willoughby Wallaby Wee, an elephant stepped on me.
Yay! Thanks for letting all those elephants step on you. All right. So how do we make sure that we build this love of language, of stories, of learning, rather than squash it? So one of the very biggest ways is that we follow their lead instead of doing anything, that we're just, anything, instead of trying to drive the bus, we let them drive the bus. So that's one of the very, very biggest ways that we can help ensure that we build this love. So we're bringing this home, but like in the yard, books happen because children bring books to me. They bring me the books they want to read and they sit down in my lap and read them. Or sometimes maybe I'll pick up a book and that can be an invitation and children might come closer to hear it. But I'm not saying, everybody, you've got to sit still at this time when your bodies might be telling you to do something different, and we're going to read this book, because those things can really kill their love of reading. Then the second thing is that we are going to model it. So this is kind of bringing things out, like you're reading, you're writing, and instead of like doing those things when your kids are engaged somewhere else, involving your children. Sometimes when you're reading, like just offering them to read too, like I'm going to read my book right now, and they can have books out with them. Or again, like modeling and picking up one of their books that they might join in. But a big thing is with modeling with the writing. And so making lists, out actually doing a little bit of that by hand so that they can see you writing by hand. If you've migrated to almost all of your writing, it's being done electronically, that can be fine. And maybe you have an extra keyboard you can pull out or something that they can pretend to write alongside of you when you're doing things on the computer or on your phone. But it's good if you can bring a few of those things offline. And one of the best things is just making lists of like what I have to do today, making your shopping list, as well as modeling some writing of like making thank you notes and cards to other people and things like that. So them seeing you doing it and you providing them materials to do it alongside that with you, like paper and pencils or an extra keyboard or letter stamps or things, so that they can do it with you, just like when they're really interested in helping you with the laundry or washing the dishes or any of those other kinds of things. They're very interested, and a lot of their play looks like the things that we do in our lives. So when they're seeing you read and write, they become interested in reading and writing too. So know that visibility is important. And then I say use the in-between moments. And what I mean by in-between moments are moments like when we're in the car or on a bus or a train or a plane, when we're in waiting rooms, when we're having to wait for those endless COVID test lines. Those are great moments. When we're cleaning up, what is that my mind just went blank on the cleanup song. Having songs for those rituals of like cleaning up, of going to bed, of making dinner, incorporating, using all of those times to play with language and words. And some of the best ways are songs and rhymes and games and storytelling. So this is where I'd love you to use the chat to, like, if there are games that you've played, like the games that I think of as a family that I remember right off the bat are from being on car rides. And so we used to look for particular letters of the alphabet when we were, so like I Spy with my little I, we'd look for the different letters of the alphabet. That was like one of the car games that we played, which is a great game to play. With my son, he loved looking for traffic signs in the car. He was definitely really interested in language, and we also would play a lot of like rhyming kinds of games in the car. So there's times and spaces and games that you used to like to play with language, or you play now, that'd be great to add in our chat. And then the fourth thing on there about building that love is through play. One of the things that you see children do in play that is early literacy, that which you might not know it, is as they move from, so this is my phone, right? So a child might have a play cell phone these days, or even the play old phones, they still know what they are. So they have this real phone, and they may pretend like they're making a phone call on the phone. And it moves from that to where maybe they have something like this that doesn't look like a phone anymore, but it's still an object, right? And this, all of a sudden, this object becomes the phone. They tap on it. Hello, Teresa. How are you? So all of a sudden, this has become a symbol for a phone. And language is about, reading and writing are about being able, language itself is a symbol for the thing that it is, right? So a hand is a symbol for my hand, the actual thing. And then once you get into letters or symbols for sounds, you put those sounds together, they become a word, and the word becomes a symbol for an object. So it moves from the real phone to the thing that can stand into a phone to not having a phone at all, and being able to imagine the phone. And all of those things are through play. They're practicing early literacy skills. They're also doing storytelling. So one of the key skills about early reading is actually structure of what you're reading. So the narrative structure of a beginning, a middle, and end. And through the scripted kinds of story types of imaginative play, they're actually building early literacy skills. Then another thing that you see through play, that how play can foster and build this love of language, is that they will go, and maybe it's through a TV show or a movie, or maybe it's one of their books, like Harry Potter was a very big book for this. They start retelling the stories that they hear through their play. And the ways that we can follow that lead, with them, is by helping. So like I have a child who's really interested in playing mommy and baby, care play. And so we're following their lead. That's their interest in the thing that they're playing. And we're helping extend that story and continue to build it and add on through the way we interact with them in that play. Or we know they have this, we play word bingo, finding P's for Petra, very good. Like knowing starting with their name is always a really good place to start. I was going to go back up to your, so which of the books was more narrative? That Peppa Pig might be a really good one where you start seeing, like Peppa Pig is a favorite Tommy book, then you could even start playing Peppa Pig kinds of games with him to help build that skill of retelling through play. And then 5, it's one of the ways we build a love of language and stories and learning is these moments when we maybe share some writing, or we write to each other, or we make cards, or we share a book with each other, or simply share the story of our days, or we play these games. These are moments of really meaningful connection with our children. And so using those moments of connection with our children to celebrate language and words and love, it builds the love, it builds our connection with each other, but it also builds a love for reading and writing as well. And then the last one on my list for building the love is I don't know if your kids are in this stage, have been in this stage, are approaching this stage, but at some point, usually in a child's life, they start asking the question why to everything. And it's a great opportunity, that question why. It's especially a wonderful opportunity if you know your home library, and you're like, I don't know. I know we've got a book on dinosaurs. Let's go see if it's in there. But, like that's such a wonderful way. Say, that you don't have a book on anything related to that why, it's this amazing thing that we have in our we all have in our pockets now. You can turn to this and the text for it. Or maybe you even go, oh, you know what? Maybe the library has a book on that, and you can use it as an excuse to go take a library trip. So, okay. Are you guys ready to play again? This one, you guys can just do along with me. So we're going to get our fingers ready. So here comes one finger. One little friend came to school one day. He went to the blocks and began to play. A second little friend said, "Can I play too?" The first little friend said, "I'll share with you." So they worked together and built a big town, and then they were finished and they knocked it down. And my cat, I don't know if you can hear my cat, but my cat wanted to join in on that. Let's do it together again. You ready, Tommy? Here we go. One little friend came to school one day. Just very excited to be at school. He went to the blocks and began to play. A second little friend said, "Can I play too?" The first little friend said, "I'll share with you." So they worked together and they built a big town. And when they were finished, they knocked it down. So the Willoughby Wallaby Woo and the finger play I just shared with you. These are songs, finger plays, and rhymes are all really good ways to start to begin to build phonemic awareness. And again, this is like one of the foundational skills for decoding, really. Like decoding is basically being able to identify the sounds and bring them together and to read. And the phonemic awareness is basically to be able to identify the sounds in a word and manipulate them. So when we were doing Willoughby, Wallaby, Watherin, we were replacing the k sound in Catherine, that beginning k sound, with a w sound, a W, to make Watherin with it. So like the most common sorts of things that they would do in formal instruction is to take like a word like cat and replace the beginning sound with different sounds. So if I replace the C in cat with an M, the sound it would be mat, or tat, or fat, or hat. So phonemic awareness is our ability to manipulate the sounds, to hear the sounds and manipulate them. And then, again, the most common is to replace the beginning sound with another sound. But you could also have it like you have the word cat and you would replace the a sound with an is sound. So it would be kit. So you could replace the middle sound or the end sound, cat, where you replace the t sound with, let's see, and like something that keeps if I do it with an N, it changes the A in the middle. So that wouldn't work. Oh, P, like P. So it would change from cat to cap. So one of the ways that we can start to build this awareness in our children is through songs, finger plays, and rhymes. Willoughby Wallaby Woo is one of the great ones because it's actually doing that in the song. But often there's like down by the bay where the watermelon grows, back to my home I will not go. For if I do, my mother will say, have you ever seen a bear combing his hair? And that's another great song. So they're taking the animal and then making a rhyme with it. So rhymes, finger plays, and songs. So I would love for you, if you know any good songs, finger plays, or rhymes, to share those with us in the chat. Another one of my favorites is Miss Mary Mac, 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 all dressed in black, 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 with silver buttons, buttons, buttons all down her back, back, back. That one's a hand clap song, and that one's a really fun one too. So these are great things, songs, finger plays, and rhymes, and just pulling those out in those in-between times to help foster phonemic awareness. So let's play. This one's a familiar one on the pat a cake. So this is a fairly hard thing to do for anyone probably under 6, the one that's the simple cross. If you want to do it up to your camera, but a much easier. So that rhythm too is part of phonemic awareness. So being able to break up the syllables in words is building that early rhythm. And the best way to build the early rhythm, you see me do it at school when I do the hello song, is it's called patching. And this just physically, developmentally, is the easiest thing for our children to do. So if you guys want to patch in with me, that's what it's called, to keep the rhythm. So you can do this when you're doing a rhyme. So we'll do it with our pat a cake. Pat a cake, baker's man. Bake me a cake as fast as you can. Pat it, prick it, mark it with a B, and put it in the oven for baby and me. So that could be a great way to build that early phonemic awareness with our children. And when they're really young, you can just even have their hands on top of yours or your hands over theirs, and you're doing that rhythm with them. It's amazing that how quickly a baby can, really how young that children can start getting that rhythm. Usually, like you notice with a baby, they just move their body, right? You can't keep it clapping for them at home. One of my favorite things is when I'm trying to, I'm not that strong musically either. And if I'm trying to keep a beat or a tune, and anybody is in this space and they're not able to, I get easily pulled off really easily. All right, so we're on our very last topic of basically supporting early literacy at home, and it's about supporting our early writers. And again, this is really like my passion, because writing is reading inside out. So if I want to read the word cat, for example, I need to know that the C says k, the A says a, and the T says t, and I need to be able to put it together, cat, and then put it together, cat. Know that cat is that animal right there to be able to read it. But say I've got this beautiful cat at home. Some of you may have cats, and I love my cat and I want to write about my cat. That's going to be so much more meaningful for me to have the support to be able to sound out the word cat and find the letters that match it, to be able to write it, and then be able to use those skills that I've learned through this writing that comes from me to then be able to read. So this is why I always like to spend a little bit of time on how do I best support my early writer? And I would say that all of our children are already writing. And we're going to look at, like, so what stage is my child at writing? my child's only 3. What do you mean they're writing? They're writing. So we're going to go over, this is a wonderful site, 0 to 3. And you're going to get the link and some resources. I'm going to send them to you right after this presentation. So you'll have this link to this. So this goes over basically both the how, but also these different stages. So the very first stage, I just lost my cursor to go down. Why did it go away? I'm not able to scroll down. Oh, there. Okay. I don't know why. Okay. So this first stage is this what they call random scribbling stage, a very important stage. So it basically, like, in general, is between 15 months to 2.5 years that they're in this stage. So what are the resources we want to have around so they can do this? We want them to be able, here they've got some colored pencils and some paper. Maybe it's just crayons and paper. And this is, they're really like just experimenting. It's a very sensory experience, and it's coming mostly from the shoulder. And it's really about like what it feels like to do this thing. So it's just like so much of their first encounters with things. They're experimenting, like, what does it feel like? What does to make this pressure, and what does it smell like, and what's the paper like, before they even notice what's happening on the paper itself. It's like the physical sensory experience of random scribbling, and that's the very first stage of writing. And then between 2 and 3 years, they start having controlled scribbling. And so now all of a sudden they have better, it's not just coming from the shoulder, and they have a little better control over their muscles. And again, they're probably still holding the thing they're writing with like this, but they have more control over it. And so you're going to start seeing more repetition of the kinds of marks that they're making on that piece of paper, and you're going to start seeing some curves and lines, and basically, like, that's all any kind of drawing and writing is a series of curves and lines. And so you'll see the repetition of similar curves or similar lines on a piece of paper. And then the third stage, between 2.5 and 3.5 years, is it gets much more distinct, those lines and the curves and the patterns that they're making. And they're starting to realize, like, the thing that they're making on the piece of paper actually has meaning. And they may actually call it writing and tell you what it says. And then from anywhere between 3 to 5, they actually start making pictures of objects or people, but oftentimes it comes out as, oh, that's what I was going to say. Actually, in the one before, the stage 3, the lines and patterns, there they may accidentally create something and tell you what it is. And then in this 4th stage, they'll start working from, like, I have an idea, and trying to make the thing that they have in their head. And then the 5th stage is letter and word practice. And again, that's 3 to 5 years. And so what it is, and I don't know if you've seen it with your children or you've seen it with other children, is they start making things that look like, they start making things that look more like letters and words, either print or writing, and with intention that they're writing a story, and they'll tell you what that story is. And I kind of go back to, see, I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Because this is from the NAEYC, which is the National Association of Education for Young Children. And this looks more at writing specifically. So those early stages are captured here in what they call drawing and then scribbling. So they're just talking about the development when a child is like intentionally putting something down on the piece of paper and as writing. So it's going from what it looks like here is drawing to scribbling to wavy scribbling. So this is here in that very fifth stage of the stages of drawing and writing. Those wavy scribbles or mock handwriting. And sometimes it shows up as the one below it, which is basically like a series of lines and circles. So this child here is with the wavy lines is imitating cursive writing, and below they're imitating print writing. And then you'll start seeing sorry. I'm trying to point to things, but that's not working. Let me go up. Because we're not in the same room with each other. So if you look at the one letter strings, hopefully you can see my cursor there. You'll see that sometimes it's just random letters that have no association with sound, but it will, for the child, they'll have a whole story that goes along with that letter string. Oftentimes you'll see them start using the first letter of the words that they want to write. So a series of first letters. So it could be like someone is making octopus happy with that SMOH, where those letters actually are standing in for the initial sound of the word. And sometimes they'll be random. But you'll be able to notice that pattern if you can ask your children to read what they wrote. And then you see them starting to put things together. That to me looks like the word school. But there's a space in between, so it could be two different words that they have. And then it moves on into invented, or what they call phonetic spelling. And this is like, I love to point this stage of writing out to families, because it's a really, really important, really important developmental stage in writing to go through. I call it, when I'm with children, I said, oh, you're doing sounded out writing, is what I call it. So I'll call it, oh, you're doing bold line writing. Oh, I see you're doing joined up writing. So I will actually give these things names to validate and let children know I see you writing, and it's authentic. Because what will happen in like a more formalized instructional setting of writing is children will be like, I don't know how to write. I can't write. And they don't see themselves as writers, even though they're already writing. So I think it's really important to see our children's writing as writing, that these are all kinds of writing. They're just not book writing. So that very last conventional spelling and sentence writing, that's book writing. But all the other kinds of writing are writing too. So the phonetic writing, I like the dog, is where they're getting all the sounds that they can hear, that phonemic awareness piece. They're getting all those sounds and letter sound associations that they can hear out on the paper. And they can write about anything. They can write about, I had a 5-year-old who was writing about, I am a pterodactyl flying in the sky, looking at the trees, and they could write that because they weren't limited to just what they could spell. They weren't limited to write just like, I see, fill in the blank, I see the dog, I see whatever. They were able to write these beautiful things because they were allowed and seen as writers, because we were supporting them and sounding it out and doing that really important stage of that phonetic spelling. And they're learning all of their phonics right? In a really meaningful way. And then they begin to write, words and phrases, like simple words like cat and mom that they see, words that they see around them in the print, as well as like starting to apply those early phonic skills to phonetic words. And then eventually getting to conventional spelling and sentence writing. It's very funny that they have the child's name, because that's usually the very first conventionally spelled non-phonetic word that a child writes is their name. So that was a lot on the stages. So how can we support them in the early writing? And so again, it's really like your child comes to you with something and they're really proud of it, and it says something, showing it to you, and it looks like writing rather than a picture, right? You could say, oh, read me what you wrote. Oh, I see you're doing joined up writing. Those are really easy, ways that we can support our children in those early stages of writing. A child has done a picture, and you say, tell me about it. And they have this whole story that they start to tell you. You can ask them, would you like to do some dictating writing? That's where you get to be the boss, I get to be the secretary, and I write down what you wrote. And you can ask them, where do you want me to write it? Should I write it on a Post-it note? Do you want me to write it on the back? Do you want me to write it on the bottom, so that you're honoring the thing that they made, right? And then you can write out what they said, so they can see that basically like that their words can be written down. So that's another really wonderful way. So they've got something they're showing you, they've got a whole story. Would you like to do some dictating writing? So that's where they get to be the boss, you get to be the secretary, and you write it down. Another, like, those are all really important in those early phases. And then they're going to get to the phase, right, where they're interested in starting to sound out words, to be able to write pterodactyl. So how do you support them in writing a word like pterodactyl? So the very first thing with a word like pterodactyl is to break it up into its syllables. So you've been doing all that phonemic awareness work by playing and doing rhymes and songs and rhythms with them. So pterodactyl, you're going to clap it out. Pterodactyl. So you're going to break it up into its syllables, and then you're going to break it up into tear. So that's the first. So let's just start with the tear. What's the first sound you hear in tear? What's the next sound? Air. What letter is that? And oftentimes they'll get that it's an R. So that they won't, so the phonetic spelling for them might be T and R. And that first one, maybe with tear, it's just T. Maybe they get an E sound from that, and they get the E sound in it. And then we go to the next one, you can do your umbrella, the U, and then dactyl to break it up, dac, ak. So with each sound, so you're just helping them sound out that word and match the letters that go with it. And you're not worried about all the million ways that English is not phonetical. Like, you're just trying to get the main sounds in that word and celebrate. Oh, you did sound it out writing. Look, pterodactyl, and read it back. Another way to help them is to have, I'm going to talk about having a portable writing center as one of your resources. Well, I'm not going to talk about it much. I basically have a handout for you about how to create a portable writing center for your children. And one of the things you can tack in there is called sight words or high frequency words. And if you look up the top 10 most frequently used words in the English language, you can get a list of those and just print them out, and those can be in their writing center. And anytime they're wanting to use those words, instead of sounding those words out, the way you can support them is like, oh, let's see if it's on our in our frequent word lists or our sight word lists, and they can just copy that word directly over. So it's like a, the, there, those are all like really, really frequently used words. And it's something like over 90% of the words that we read and write are high frequency words. And not very many of them are the actual sounded out words, pterodactyl words. So rather than like belaboring and sounding those things out, oh, that's one of those words we use all the time, let's look at that one on our list and just copy it over, or just even like offer to write it for them. Then I talked about syllabication, breaking big words like pterodactyl into syllables, and that's really it. I went a little over. I keep going over. Sorry. But that's really it. I highly recommend this portable rating center. I can take you over to that link, which I have in the presentation for you, just to show you a couple things there. So I have this. So it's basically just a handout there that talks about how you can make a little writing center out of a shower caddy and some of the things that you might put in it. So it's really lovely. You can take it with you to the doctor's office, to the car, or move it from his room to your room, or anytime that you're writing, pull out that portable writing center, even if you're on the computer, so that they can write alongside with you. It's a wonderful resource to have. And then this is another thing that's great to have in your portable writing center. And this is actually a sound letter chart that I created from my past lives when I was doing early literacy and writing books on early literacy. So this is my own letter sound chart, and you can use this as a resource when you're helping them sound out words when they get there, when your child is at that stage. So many of you, your child might not be at that stage yet, but when they get there, this is a great resource to be able to use. So if I'm doing the t sound, I can say, oh, that's the same as the top sound. That's the letter T, in pterodactyl. So any questions? For me?
Not a question, just to share that we use the clapping thing for a while. Eli wasn't enunciating his words, and there's a lot of quirks in how children learn, and swapping sounds, and like only saying the beginning and ends of words. And so a speech therapist we talked to, that was one of the techniques that they said to use. So we use that, but then it's really funny when he talks like that sometimes, just to do it. But it's helped. I think he's come a long way with that, and he thinks that's how you're supposed to talk sometimes. He's stopped now, but for a little while, that's how he would talk, like regularly.
That's lovely. So like when you are doing like, so when you break a pterodactyl up into its sound, so we take the DAC, it's got a beginning, middle, and end sound in DAC, right? You can also do the and then come down lower on your body. Because sometimes like using their bodies really helps, right? So and the K gets down low. So, so that they can separate that beginning, middle, and end sound within a single syllable to help them when they're sounding out. Yeah. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Are we wanting to take a break?
Well, thanks for doing that. I'm gonna stop the recording now so that we can post that recording. Ready?